Gav, one of the things that we do hear from people is when they do a mock build and their distance just doesn't seem right, they want to start cutting the neck. Would you ever cut the neck?
No, look, the thing to understand that these kits are mass produced in pretty much most respects, so there's not going to be a neck that is suddenly incorrect. So very often the measurements that are being made, they often say to you, measure twice, measure again, kind of DB's mantra about sanding, but make sure you do that. Don't start cutting anything. Rather speak to one of us on the forum and we can actually check measurements for you and save you a lot of heartache.
Yeah. Just to clarify, we've sold hundreds and hundreds of kits. We've not had one where the neck has been out. So the chances of your neck being wrong is probably pretty remote. So do just jump on the forum and send us some photos or some measurements and we'll sort you out. And make sure you watch all the videos on the site.
Absolutely, Adam.
So Gav, what we're talking about here is the distance from inside the nut to the 12th fret and from the 12th fret to the bridge saddles.
That's
now,
correct.
On the video where we talk about setting up your glued on neck, your set neck or your bolt on neck, we actually say that that distance should be the same, but actually it's not.
That's correct.
Can you explain why there's a bit of a difference?
100%, Adam. The key thing to remember here is that we are playing with a guitar that has strings, and the strings have the ability to bend. And when the strings bend, they stretch. So what we're looking at doing is measuring the distance from the crown of the 12th fret, so that's from the middle of this fret over here, through to the nut, and that's right at the start of the nut. So it's this edge of the nut. Now if we measure this, 313 mils, which is your standard that you'll get for something like a Les Paul. So we measure that 313 to that point over there. If we then take that 313 again and we measure it towards the bridge, there we are, there's 313 from the crown, center of the crown again. You can see that over here it's pretty much accurate. It's about a millimetre and a half or so to the top E here.
And what you can see actually very well here is as you go up the strings from the E to the B to the G to the D to the A to the E, these gaps are actually getting longer, and that's of course because the strings are thicker.
Correct.
As you go up. So that thickness of the string means you need to pull this bridge saddle back to allow for that thickness to compensate.
Yeah, and that's your intonation that you're looking at getting absolutely spot on there, and they do call this compensation. Now if we take another ruler and we also go same situation, we take the 313 and we're going to take that, put the 313 in over here, and as you correctly mentioned, you can now see that there is a major gap.
Yeah,
from
there almost 5 or 6
almost 5 mils. So instead of it being 313, that's actually closer to 318, and the reason simply is because the string is actually thicker, and also has something to do with the distance that the string is actually away from the fretboard. Now if you get this horrible very poor action with the string being very high, the string is going to stretch a lot more and you're going to end up with a different measurement over here. In fact, you'll probably end up with it being even further away because the string is actually stretching so much more.
Okay, thanks Gavin. So last of all, Gav, we focus now on the bridge and the saddles, and you can really see that this bridge is angled, as we're talking about, for the extra thickness of the E, A and the D strings. And when we're putting on our neck and we're doing our measurements, it's important that we should bring these saddles forward as far as they can go when we are taking the initial measurements.
That's correct, Adam. This particular one is slightly angled, and you'll often see that on an acoustic guitar when it's a lot more pronounced. On this it's just ever so slightly angled, probably about a millimetre or so back, but ideally what you want to do is if you've measured your distance and it's 313 mils from the nut to here, you want to get this to about 314 or so. If this is slightly angled, you'll be looking at 315 maybe, so it's a 1 millimetre offset on that. But get these little saddles as far forward as you can. Gives you a lot of room to play, to move them all back when it comes time to actually intonate and tune the guitar perfectly.
In case people haven't seen that, obviously there's screws at the back here, so these saddles can move back and forward, and that's how you do your intonation. And intonation, of course, is that distance between here and the 12th fret and the 12th fret to the nut.
Correct, yes, that's very important. One of the key issues that we have found a couple of times is folk actually put the bridge on the wrong way around.
Yep.
And you don't want to do that. So if your screws happen to be on this side, well then obviously you've got it wrong. So make sure they're on that side, wind them right the way forward, and then basically set up the intonation so that your tuning's pretty much perfect.
Okay, there you go. That's a bit of a run through how you do get the neck set properly and the distance from the nut to the 12th fret and the 12th fret to the bridge. So don't freak out if your measurements aren't adding up. Just head along to our forum and give us your measurements and maybe some photos if you think you've still got a problem, and we'll sort it out for you. Gav, thanks very much for hanging.
Welcome, Adam.
Cheers.